Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest, Michael Gravelle, MPP for Thunder Bay Superior North. So, Michael, we just talked about in the last the last segment, about people's voices and participating. When I jumped into the formal political ring 3 years ago, one of my goals was to try to engage people who don't participate. And along with our interworkers group, we started targeting neighborhoods where we understood people don't participate, mostly low income,
Right.
high Aboriginal population, young people. Once the experts came to work on my campaign, they said, don't go there. They don't vote. We don't need to pay attention to them. Well, after that, I've been working in one of those neighborhoods and have seen a change by creating an atmosphere where people can come and express their views. And it seems like there's a lack of that opportunity for many folks. And so they don't even think it's an option. They don't even think that I should raise my voice, that I should talk to my elected representatives, because that's not something I've ever done or I know how to do or that anyone really cares. But it seems like now, when just in amongst peers, their voices are beginning to be heard, and they've been through maybe some training and some skill building, they're willing to take on more issues.
Absolutely.
And they are. But none of that is done with the support of government programs, as an example. Like, that was all volunteer labor that went into, and the goodwill of some of the community agencies that said, hey, yeah, let's do that. So in order for those voices to be heard, and for them to vote, I mean, one of my highlights was in that election, having some of the residents vote and say, "I voted for the first time."
That's right. It's a great thing.
It is a great thing. So how can we do that? How can we strengthen those voices that don't see that they really have a role to play?
Well,
in this?
I so agree with you, and it's interesting because while you were speaking about your experience, which you and I shared. The best thing about an election campaign, you almost wish it was always like that, is that certainly I would get to every part of the community. And the last election in particular, I managed to probably hit more doors. And I share the experience you had. I would be advised by my people, you don't go to that particular neighborhood because they actually don't support you or they don't vote. Well, that's where I go. That's where I tend to go. I find the experience of being in people's homes, knocking on their doors, presuming they're happy to see you, and almost always they are, by the way, as you experience. They talk about a number of issues. One, how amazingly well informed they are, but they don't feel they have a voice, so you encourage them to have that voice. So I want to be able to encourage that as much as possible, because it really is true. If you go into, I really do mean what you and I are both talking about, in particular what I'm talking about as an elected representative. You have to actually go there and listen to what they have to say. I don't know how you translate that into the reality post-election when a government is put in place, other than to say that I truly feel that I am dealing with a number of organizations that I wouldn't be if I hadn't connected with them. And even maybe via this conversation we're having today, more people will reach out, because there's no question about it. I mean, there is a power in your voice being louder. There's a certain natural power to that. Mm-hmm. So certainly, I mean, I encourage it. I believe in it more than ever after almost 20 years doing this. That's the kind of advice that I'm looking for. That's the way I want to speak, particularly when I getting to sit around the cabinet table. I want to be able to express the kinds of things I'm hearing, not necessarily from the heads of the big corporations that we're trying to woo into the province, how important as that may be. We want to hear the voice of people who perhaps aren't feeling as strongly represented. And again, may I say, and I'm trying actually hard not to make this too much of a political conversation, our Premier, my boss, Kathleen Wynne, is somebody who clearly feels very much the same way. She is very connected to people. She is one of the most genuine people I know, and certainly makes her one of the most genuine politicians I know. So she's very open to our conversations being about how do we find a way as a government to bring more fairness, to listen to more people, to bring that into our society. So it's really it's very much one of the goals that I have. But boy, I wish there was a way for more people to get more directly involved.
Well, just continuing on that point, and like you say, that's one of your goals. It's interesting because the 30, 35 years that I've been active in our community, what I have seen is the public programs that we had from both the provincial and the federal government to support citizen engagement are all gone. Trudeau brought the Young Canadians, I forget what it was called, the CYC.
Company Young Canadians.
Company Young Canadians. We had Katimavik. Katimavik just got canceled.
Yep.
It was a wonderful program that engaged young people in giving them a chance to actually see that they could be involved.
It was a great program.
So the idea, what it seems like, is successive governments of all stripes have said, you're complaining, your funding's cut off. So structurally, where do we go with that?
Well, we could do an entire program, Steve, and perhaps we will, just talking about the federal government and how they have become, particularly over the last 10 years, completely disengaged and made the kinds of decisions that actually has taken away support from those people who actually don't necessarily agree with them. Mm-hmm. I mean, traditionally provincial governments haven't played as direct a role in that kind of activism as the federal government has. So certainly, I mean, I am hoping to see a different kind of federal government moving forward, because I think it's important to have that activism. But on the provincial level as well, certainly we have some kinds of funding programs, particularly through organizations like Trillium and others that are actually working with a lot of volunteer not-for-profit groups. But there's no question we are in a time when it's more difficult, I think, for some organizations to express their point of view because they're afraid of their funding, the impact on their funding. Mm-hmm. But again, I think we're talking about something that we're seeing very much at the federal level. I mean, I just believe that, again, we said it, I think maybe we said it when we were on break, but I believe that people should have very high expectations of their elected officials, their MPPs, their municipal councillors, and their federal members, and they should demand more. I won't pretend for one second I'm not super busy, because I am, but you know what? That's what people should expect from me. Lots of hard work, willing to take on all the causes. Those expectations should be high, and as a citizen, that's what I expect from my elected representatives.
Well, Michael, it's been a real pleasure.
Are we done?
We're out of time.
How did that happen?
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts. Definitely would like to have you back.
I'd love to.
I would like to encourage people to continue the discussion. We have a Facebook page. It's called Community Conversations. If you have thoughts or questions or comments about our discussion today, please add them there. We'll encourage Michael to kind of check out that Facebook page every now and again and continue on. We're also beginning to post our shows onto YouTube. It usually takes a week or two after the show before it gets up there. But similarly, if you're looking for us on YouTube, you want to see a show over again, you can just search Community Conversations, Thunder Bay, and it'll come up to the top. Thank you very much for staying tuned, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you. It's great.